Hello everyone, my name's Paul. This is my first video about narcissistic abuse. I'm a 51-year-old male. I've experienced narcissistic abuse most of my life, if not all of my life. And I just found out about it in the last couple of years. And the thing that forced me to really find out about it, because we've all heard of narcissist, and it's just a generic term for people that like to look in the mirror a lot. But it's not just that. It's so much more to narcissism than people that are self-absorbed and like to look in the mirror a lot and are self-centered. There's just so much more to it than that. So I've dealt with narcissists all my life. I'm an empath, a Sigma empath. I'm an INFJ Sigma empath, which means I have a mind of my own, which means I am a free spirit and I enjoy my own company. I'm not afraid to be alone. And it also makes me prime supply or a prime target for aggressive, predatory, destructive narcissists. They see people like me as easy target for abuse because we are empaths are very giving, very kind. We have a very generous spirit. We have a spirit of abundance and we trust everyone. But finding out about narcissism, that has forced me to understand the real meaning of a wolf in sheep's clothing. My mother was a narcissist, my adoptive mother, and she set us all up to fail. And we're all struggling now in life with different mental health issues and emotional issues because our mother was a narcissist. And now that I know that she's a narcissist, I've accepted that she's never going to change and she's going to take it to her grave. So it's just a brick wall, trying to deal with her, trying to reason with her, trying to get a word in, because she completely controls the narrative. So the first narcissist that I really had dealings with was my mother. She was a religious narcissist and a covert narcissist. I dealt with a lot of narcissists at school. We all did. We all came across bullies at school, yeah? The school bullies, racist bullies, sexist bullies, homophobic bullies. We all came across that kind of bullying at school. And in school, the school culture was very much a case of it's eat or be eaten. It's bully or be bullied. So a lot of people joined in the bullying. My adoptive family was so dysfunctional, so oblivious to reality because of their religiousness that they put us with the only black boys in our school. So I went through 11 years of racial abuse, more than 11 years of racial abuse at school, in my primary school and my secondary school. The only black boy in my class, the only black boy in the school. I went through a lot of racial abuse and a lot of that was done by narcissists. A lot of the racial bullying was done by narcissists looking back, because they would say things like, they would come at me with racist abuse using the N-word or the B-word. Unrepeatable racist abuse. Most of it that was picked up from the football terraces at the weekend, yeah? They would say things like, go back to your own country. And that was the nice things. And then when they'd see me getting upset, they'd say, can't you take a joke? Well, I was only joking. What, haven't you got a sense of humour? Oh, come on, why are you taking it so seriously? That was the first gaslighting I experienced from primary school children. They already learned one of the primary tactics of narcissistic abuse, the gaslighting in primary school. Racial abuse followed by, can't you take a joke? Later on in my life, in my adult life, I met a few narcissists in church as well. Growing up in the church, a lot of the ministers had narcissistic tendencies. A lot of members of the congregation were narcissists. There was like a group narcissistic neurosis going on in a lot of the churches that we grew up in, including our very own house church. For God's sake. There was like a group narcissistic neurosis going on in the churches that we grew up in. And there was a lot of gaslighting and scapegoating going on as well in the churches. So I'll come back to that later on, or I'll do another video on religious narcissistic abuse. Later on in my adult life, most of my partners were narcissists. And the reason I know they were narcissists is because one, I'm not still with them now. It didn't last very long. Two, the relationships ended with me in limbo, like hanging in the air thinking, what happened? What was that all about? What happened to them? Leaving me scratching my head thinking, what did I do to deserve being discarded like that? What do I do to deserve just being left in the lurch? When I was just giving in so many ways. I was just giving it my all to this relationship. But looking back at those relationships now, they were breadcrumbing me. They were benching me. They were stringing me along. They were leading me up the garden path. They were gaslighting me. They were triangulating me with other people. And they were all narcissists. Some of them showed their narcissism behind the wheel, for example, in road rage, the way they abused other road users. Yeah, that's one manifestation of narcissistic abuse. In fact, it's why I ended the relationship with one of these people, because their road rage was so revealed so much about them and their true colours. Other partners ended up owing me money. They borrowed money, can I borrow this, can I borrow that? And they never paid it back, and they asked to borrow more. So they saw me as a source of supply. So looking back now, they saw me as a source of narcissistic supply, financially, as well as emotionally and sexually, etc., etc. So most of my exes were narcissists. They never took the relationship seriously. They were always treating me as an option rather than their number one soulmate. Rather than being their twin flame, the one person in their life, they just treated me like a soulmate. This was mostly before the days of mobile phones, or just at the beginning of mobile phones, when people would sit in front of you like they do now on their phones, literally sit in front of you, texting someone else right next to you or right in front of you, texting someone else or chatting to someone else right in front of you. That is just some of the rudest behavior I've ever seen. But it is normal, it's been normalized. And this narcissistic gaslighting has been normalized in society that we live in today, thanks to social media. So my exes were narcissists. I've had narcissistic neighbors. Narcissistic neighbors, they get in your life, they come in your house, they come in your home, they help themselves to things, they see what you've got, and then they get in your face, and then they get in your head, then they get in your pockets, and then they get in your cupboards and your drawers, and they start helping themselves to things. Credit cards, debit cards. Oh, can I borrow this? Can I borrow that? And then they're texting you and they're ringing you and they're waking you up, knocking on the door. Can I borrow this? Can I have that? Can you do this for us? Can I ask for a favour? That's a classical narcissistic neighbour's question, yeah? Can you do us a favour? So I had a lot of narcissistic neighbours, and then when you draw the line and say no, they switch and they don't like it. And the next thing you've got a neighbour from hell on your hands. You've got a neighbor, this is the Jekyll and Hyde character of narcissistic neighbors. When you draw the line and say, right, enough is enough, or let's take some time out, or when you put up a boundary, then you get the neighbor, they switch to the neighbor from hell. So I've had narcissistic neighbors, colleagues, workmates. I've met a lot of narcissistic bullies in the workplace. They're just bullies, man. In one job, I was doing a security job in a private members club, and there was a security guard that ended up following me around the whole compound, literally following me around the whole compound, shouting at me, yelling at me, threatening me, all because I told another colleague. I didn't even say it to the narcissist. I said to another colleague, having 10 kids is irresponsible, and half of them probably don't know who their dad is. So he was getting at me like he started making my life hell in the workplace, and I had to report it to the manager. Of course, being 15 years ago, I didn't know that I was dealing with narcissism, but now I do. This guy was literally following me around the workplace, threatening me on the workplace, making me feel so threatened and vulnerable and insecure. I literally walked off the job because the manager was enabling him. This narcissist, because he was doing it when no one else was looking, when it's just me and him on duty, there were no witnesses, That's when he got his teeth in. That's when he was stabbing me in the back. He started eating me alive and devouring my spirit with this abuse. So because no one else would believe me, and because he had everyone else around his little finger, I just walked off the job. My life is not worth that kind of abuse. I've had other narcissistic clients. I've had narcissistic clients abuse me at work. I had one in this same private members club. I had a narcissistic client come into the security house and start shouting at me like a Karen. And funnily enough, she was American from the South. She had a very strong American Southern drawl. She might have been from Alabama or Mississippi. But anyway, she was shouting and yelling, all because I asked her to show her membership card. I just said, look, why can't people have their membership cards ready when they arrive on site? Because that is the rules. How dare you? Who do you think you're talking to? And she came flying into the security office, she gave me all this mouth. She reported me to the manager, reported me to the CEO. I was questioned. I was investigated. This was another racist Karen, by the way. The sort of racist Karen narcissist who demands to speak to the manager and call the police at the drop of a hat, especially when they're dealing with someone who's got brown skin. So I've dealt with narcissists in the workplace, narcissistic colleagues. They're jealous of my performance. They're jealous of my work spirit, my work ethic, or they're just homophobic. A lot of narcissists in the workplace, they manifest in the form of homophobic bullies, yeah? They see a gay person or an empath or a sensitive person as an easy target. And they think they can get promoted. They think they can improve their job prospects by bullying that empath, by making that empath's life a misery, by intimidating and threatening and bullying that empath in front of other colleagues, even in front of managers. They'll do it. They think they can climb the ladder and get to the top at that empath's expense. So I've come across a lot of narcissistic family members, narcissistic siblings and half siblings, narcissistic school friends, so-called friends. Looking back now, a lot of my school friends were racist. They were gaslighting me all along, pretending to be my friend, being nice to my face, but behind my back, I was the laughing stock. Yeah, they were making a mockery of me behind my back. So a lot of the friends that I had in the environment that I grew up in, they were gaslighting me all along. So I've dealt with a lot of narcissists in my life. The last one was a personal trainer. I paid him a lot of money to help me get in shape and help me get fit and strong. And he took a lot of money off me. And in fact, I've had 3 personal trainers and they were all narcissistic, some worse than others. And the last one, he nearly put me in the psych ward. He nearly drove me to insanity and suicide. When I got to the point where I just had it up to here with the abuse and the shouting and the screaming. And I just decided, right, I've had enough. And I had to just drop him. I just had to let him go, disengage. I had to sack him there and then on the spot. He wasn't expecting it. But by this time, I had already started overeating, and I had already started gaining back on the weight that I'd already lost under his supervision. So personal trainers are a very special kind of narcissist because they're unregulated. Most of them are self-employed. They're a law unto themselves, and a lot of them will just they're so narcissistic, they're malignant narcissists because they will take your money and put you in hospital one way or another. It could be in a normal hospital with an inflammation or a fracture or a punctured something or another kind of injury, or they'll put you in the mental hospital because of the mental abuse, yeah, with the devaluation. They are the worst at devaluing people, is personal trainers. There's no regulation of the industry. It's very vain and narcissistic business, personal trainers. So the last one nearly drove me to suicide. He put me in therapy. I had to wait 2 years because of COVID. I had to wait 2 years for therapy and ended up in trauma stabilization therapy. But it really just scratched the surface. It didn't really do anything because CBT is not really geared for dealing with people with PTSD from narcissistic abuse. So 2 years after I discarded this narcissist, I still got CPTSD from their abuse. And that manifests in the form of forgetfulness, short-term memory loss, dizziness, disorientation, confusion, anxiety, social phobia, in being panicking in social settings, being self-conscious, self-doubt, second-guessing myself, questioning myself, criticizing myself, having crippling self-doubt, paralysis of analysis. This is where the last narcissist has left me, in a state where I put back on all the weight that I lost under his supervision, and then some, and he nearly put me in the mental hospital, or drove me insane, and drove me to suicide in the meantime, after he took all that money off me. So now he doesn't give a shit. He's just getting on with his life, doesn't give a shit. And I know if I'd recorded more sessions, I did record some of the sessions, but I didn't record any of the abuse, unfortunately. But if I recorded at least one more session and got some of his narcissistic abuse on camera, I could have exposed him for all the world to see. And I could have done him some serious damage, because exposure is the last thing they expect. Exposure is like, is the death knell for narcissists, yeah, because their catalogue of abuse and their trail of victims, it all hinges on secrecy and doing it behind closed doors. Much in the way of coercion, coercive control, it happens behind closed doors. So if I'd have been able to record some more of the abuse from this narcissist as he was training me in my own backyard, I could have used it against him. I could have even used it to sue the guy. Yeah, but I've watched thousands of videos on YouTube about narcissistic abuse, surviving, healing, recovery, and most of them advise that the best way to heal and recover from narcissistic abuse is 1, cut them off, 2, cut off all the flying monkeys, all their associates, their informers, the moles, the spies, all the ones that are gathering information and taking it back to the narcissist and doing their bidding. Cut them all off as well. So I had to cut off most of my community and my neighbours. I just had to cut them all off because they were all giving me funny looks, gossiping right in front of me, gossiping, staring at me as I go past. The gang stalking was on another level because of this bastard smear campaign. The smear campaign was just off the charts, man. So I had to cut them all off, and I've just had to let it go, and I've had to practice what they call radical acceptance. I'm never going to get accountability. I'm never going to get closure or an explanation or accountability from my mother, from my exes, from former neighbours and colleagues, from friends that I've had to cut off, from siblings, half-siblings, adoptive siblings, foster siblings, biological half siblings, black and white. I will never get closure from them. I will never get explanation. I will never get an apology from their narcissistic abuse. So I've just had to accept it and move on with my life. And I am moving on with my life. I'm moving on with my business. I've joined another gym. I'm doing fitness training classes, and they're helping me to get my strength back, my confidence back. I'm in therapy. I'm waiting for another therapist. So I am practicing radical acceptance, and I'm not ruminating. Even though the narcissist enters my mind every day, I'm not ruminating, and I'm not wishing that I had them back, and I'm not plotting revenge. I'm not creating revenge fantasies, how I'm going to get them back, how I'm going to teach them a lesson. I've just let them go. Just let them go, because I know they're the unhappiest people on this planet, and they get what's coming to them in the end. This guy was having other people his employers were demanding an apology for him. His neighbors were complaining about his noise. He thought he was above the law. He was challenging whenever the police stopped him. Thought he was above the police. So it's a miracle that he's not in prison, which is overpopulated with narcissists, if you ask me. Half the prison population are narcissists because they think they're above the law, and they have no remorse for their actions that impacted their behavior on other people. So I've just had to accept that what's happened has happened, and I've got to heal myself, repair myself, and it's my responsibility now to heal myself, because I played a part in my relationship with this guy, I played a part in it. You know, I didn't see it coming, but now I know, my eyes are open, and I have an awareness. I have like X-ray vision now, where I can see as soon as someone flies off the handle at the slightest thing, that's a red flag. As soon as someone blows something way out of proportion, that's a warning bell. As soon as someone overreacts to something small and minuscule, that is a red flag for narcissism. As soon as someone creates a drama out of an everyday situation, trying to get a reaction, that's another red flag. So we're living in an epidemic, and Dr. Ramani has said this herself. We are in an epidemic of narcissism where it's become normalized. People flying off the handle, kicking off at the slightest thing, you know. And Karens are another example. Karens are the finest example of narcissistic behavior in public. It's not even behind closed doors with Karens. It's in public. That's why they're getting caught and videoed and exposed for all the world to see. And they end up losing their jobs and their livelihoods over it, because, you know, the whole world can see what their true colours are. So because of their lack of self-control. So anyway, this is my first video on narcissistic abuse. I'm gonna create my own channel. I'm gonna make more videos about it and cover different areas and topics and different examples of the abuse that I've experienced, and how that I'm getting over it, getting on top of it, coming out at the end. I'm coming out the other end, and I'm getting the last laugh, yeah? And I'm getting victory. I'm getting victory over this narcissistic abuse, yeah? Because I discarded them. They didn't discard me. I discarded them because they made my life so unbearable. In the end, they make your life so unbearable that it's like being an alcoholic at rock bottom. You've only got 3 or 4 options, yeah? You can kill yourself, or they can kill you, or you can get arrested. You do something stupid and get arrested and locked away for your own safety, or you can get sectioned under the Mental Health Act by acting crazy on the streets for your own safety, or you can kill the narcissist, which some people do, or you can just let them go and just wash your hands of them and just move on with your life, you know, because life is short. And it's all about picking yourself up and carrying on. Whatever trauma has happened to us, we have to pick ourselves up and carrying on. And it's only the strongest people, especially with empaths and sigmas and INFJs, it's only the strongest ones of us that can do that. After the life of Job, you know, what happened to Jesus on the way to his crucifixion, that's like a metaphor. To me, that's like a metaphor for years and years of, like decades of narcissistic abuse, narcissistic relationships. They do destroy people, and they send a lot of people to an early grave. So anyway, this is my first video about it, and I hope you learned something from it. Don't forget to comment below. Thank you.